Our family moved to this town 3 years ago. Evelyn, my mother-in-law, had been so devoted in supporting me when I suffered from postpartum depression. I was truly grateful back then. Who could have imagined such a tragedy was waiting for us? Gentle morning light was streaming into the examination room at Lake Region Medical Center. I had just finished examining a young patient and was removing my familiar stethoscope from around my neck. "All right, Thomas. Your throat inflammation is getting much better. Let's continue the medication for 3 more days and see how it goes." As I watched the 4-year-old boy climb down from the examination table, I couldn't help but sigh. He reminded me of my own son, Ethan, who was the same age. I'm Sarah Mitchell, a physician at the only pediatric clinic in this town. It's been 3 years since we moved to this quiet lakeside community. With a population of about 5,000, this small town was the ideal environment for raising a child, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. My husband Robert serves as vice president at an investment bank in Minneapolis. Though kind-hearted, he has an indecisive streak, particularly when it comes to opposing his mother's wishes. He lives apart from us during the weekdays, making an effort to spend his limited weekend time with family. "Sarah, there's a church bazaar this weekend. Let's take Ethan along." Evelyn, my mother-in-law, was a former high school teacher who exuded an outwardly intellectual and composed demeanor. When I suffered from postpartum depression 3 years ago, she had been incredibly supportive. In fact, I might not have made it through that dark period without her presence. Postpartum depression happens to many women. You're a wonderful doctor and an excellent mother. Her kindness in taking care of Ethan, who was still a baby then, remains deeply etched in my heart. However, I had no way of knowing the truth hidden behind that kindness at the time. Last week, something that happened at Ethan's 4th birthday party now casts an eerie shadow. As balloons swayed in the wind decorating the yard, Ethan was happily riding his new bicycle. "I'll protect you forever." Evelyn was obsessively taking photos of Ethan. At that moment, I failed to notice the strange glint in her eyes. "By the way, Sarah, it's time to renew the life insurance." Looking back, the conversation Robert suddenly brought up that night was another ominous sign. And when Frank, Robert's uncle, promised a lake trip on his new boat, it was all part of an intricately planned trap. "I'm getting a new boat this weekend. I'll take Ethan for a ride." Ethan's eyes lit up at Frank's words, who doted on him. The most unsettling incident occurred during dinner at Evelyn's house. While preparing after-dinner coffee in the kitchen, I accidentally found old newspaper clippings. A local paper from 20 years ago. It reported the drowning death of Evelyn's son, James. The headline, "6-year-old boy drowns in boating accident," jumped out at me. "Oh, it's in the past now." When I asked about the article, Evelyn hurriedly put it away. Since then, I learned she had maintained a tradition of throwing flowers into the lake every year on the anniversary of her son's death. The townspeople had watched her with sympathetic eyes. However, that deep sense of loss would eventually come back to haunt us in a twisted way. Looking back now, all these events were clear warning signs. But at the time, I couldn't imagine that my own son would become a target. After all, I took Ethan to the lake that fateful day without any suspicion. It was as if we were actors on a prepared stage, moving according to a script we hadn't been shown. The Minnesota morning was surprisingly peaceful that July day. Lake Minnetonka's surface gleamed in the morning sun, its waveless surface reflecting the sky like a mirror. "Mommy, let's go. I want to ride the boat." Ethan was bouncing impatiently in his chair, barely touching his pancake breakfast. He had been eagerly anticipating the boat ride with Frank since the previous night. "Ethan, you need to finish your breakfast properly. And we still need to put on sunscreen." I smiled while admonishing my hurrying son. On the kitchen counter, a picnic basket packed with turkey sandwiches and fruit was already waiting for our departure. "I wish I could join you today, but I have a church meeting." Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and Evelyn appeared. She shrugged regretfully while gently patting Ethan's head. Looking back now, I failed to see the calculation behind that expression. "Be careful, Sarah. The weather forecast says the wind might pick up in the afternoon." With my mother-in-law's worried voice behind us, we left the house. It was a 10-minute drive to Frank's boat rental shop. Several families were already preparing to enjoy their weekend leisure activities by the lakeshore. "Good morning, Sarah." "Ethan, we've been waiting for you." Frank greeted us with his usual cheerful voice. But now I think there was a slight tension in it. "The new boat is at the end of the dock. The engine's in perfect condition, so don't worry." The gleaming white new boat was indeed impressive. Ethan let out a small cheer as he carefully climbed aboard. I meticulously checked the straps of his life jacket and stored our parasol and water bottles in the storage space. At 11 a.m., we set out on the calm lake surface. Ethan played innocently on deck while I took photos of his smiling face. As we headed toward the center of the lake, we occasionally passed other boats. All families enjoying their weekend. "Mommy, let's go over there." I could see a small inlet in the direction Ethan was pointing. We slowly changed course in that direction. As noon approached, the wind started to pick up slightly. "Are you hungry? Shall we have lunch here?" We stopped the engine and spread out our sandwiches. Ethan was talking excitedly, pointing at clouds reflected in the lake's surface while taking big bites. "Look, doesn't that cloud look like a rabbit?" That's when it happened. "Mommy, there's a white boat coming this way." I looked up at Ethan's voice. Indeed, there was a white boat. But its course was strange. So straight, as if it was targeting us. Something's wrong. An instinctive sense of unease ran down my spine. "I'm scared, Mommy." Ethan's voice was almost a scream. "Ethan, hold on tight." The moment I shouted, a violent impact struck us. A deafening metallic sound. Losing balance, I was thrown into the cold water. My memories after that are fragmented. Cold water. Desperate screams searching for my son. And the shadow of a white boat I saw before losing consciousness. When I came to, I was already on the shore. My whole body was shaking, and my head felt like it was splitting. But an even more terrifying reality hit me. Ethan was nowhere to be found. "Ethan!" Ethan. My desperate cries echoed across the lake's surface. But there was no response. And then I saw that scene. My husband and mother-in-law talking quietly on the shore. Their expressions showed an unnaturally calm demeanor. "Calm down, Sarah. You'll get sick if you panic." Robert placed his hand on my shoulder. His voice carried a tone of resignation. "I've contacted the police." Evelyn's voice was cold as ice. After that, a large-scale search began. Police boats, rescue divers, emergency broadcasts. The whole town was filled with movements searching for my son. However, in my heart, the feeling that something was wrong grew stronger. Why was my husband so adamant about refusing hospital transport? Why was my mother-in-law so calm? And why did Frank's boat rental shop suddenly close its shutters? At dusk, the search was temporarily suspended. Only an unbearable silence awaited us when we returned home. "Get a hold of yourself." My husband's words carried a hint of reproach. "You need rest." My mother-in-law's voice sounded rehearsed. That night, I became certain. This was no mere accident. And my son must be alive. 24 hours after the accident. While the lake search continues, there's no new development. I sat on the living room sofa at home, desperately trying to organize the events of the past days. Something is definitely wrong. While the police are investigating it as an accident, my sense of unease only grows. Particularly concerning is the strange behavior of my husband and mother-in-law. Last night, while I was spending sleepless hours in Ethan's room, I heard their voices exchanging words downstairs. "Let's proceed as planned." "Yes, but I'm worried about her condition." That conversation sounded like part of a prepared script. In the morning, Susan from next door came to check on me. She's a regular at the local church and close to Evelyn. "Sarah, are you okay? Do you need anything?" Behind her kind words, there seemed to be an awkward expression. And there was a decisive sense of something wrong. It felt like Susan was speaking as if Ethan was already gone. "Susan, do the townspeople know something?" At my question, she momentarily averted her eyes. "I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry." As she left, there was a tension typical of someone hiding something in her departing figure. That afternoon, my hospital colleagues took turns coming to check on me. Each time, I tried to maintain composure. However, I noticed something at one point. Janet from the front desk had a subtle change in expression when she mentioned Evelyn's name. Evelyn must be having a hard time, again. Those words were cut off mid-sentence. Again. What was she about to say? Before leaving the hospital, I gathered courage to ask Janet. "Do you know something about Evelyn?" "No, nothing in particular." She hurriedly averted her eyes. "Just 20 years ago." "I'm sorry, I don't." 20 years ago. It matches the date on that newspaper article. On my way home, I stopped my car by the lake. While gazing at the calm evening lake surface, I organized my memories. And the events from Ethan's birthday party took on new meaning. My mother-in-law's abnormal obsession. The words, "I will protect you." The sudden talk about life insurance. And Uncle Frank's unnatural boat proposal. Everything was starting to connect. Just then, my cell phone rang. It was from a man claiming to be Frank's employee. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need to talk to you. I'm waiting behind the shop." When I arrived at the meeting place, a young mechanic was waiting nervously. Actually, the day before the accident, there were special instructions about the boat maintenance. His story was interrupted. Turning to a sudden noise, there stood Frank. "It's late, you should go home." Frank's voice had a coldness I'd never heard before. When I returned home, my husband was waiting at the entrance. "Where have you been?" His attitude showed clear irritation. Behind him, as usual, stood Evelyn. We were worried. The unnaturalness of those words. Like a play. That night, I took out a notebook in my room. A doctor's habit. Writing down each point of unease, one by one. Why are my husband and mother-in-law so calm? Why do the townspeople seem to avoid me? What was the boat mechanic trying to say? What's the truth about the accident 20 years ago? The true meaning of mother-in-law's words at my son's birthday. And most concerning, why does it seem like no one is really looking for my son? By my pillow was Ethan's favorite teddy bear. Just yesterday, my son was sleeping while holding this. "Wait for me. I will find you." I made a firm vow. My son is alive. And these feelings of wrongness must be the key to the truth. Starting tomorrow, I'll take action myself. Investigate Evelyn's past, talk to the town elders. And uncover the truth about that boat accident. As a doctor, and more importantly as a mother, I have a duty to protect my son. Even if it means confronting my family. Morning of the third day after the accident. I woke up early. Under the dim pre-dawn sky, I headed to Evelyn's house. My husband was away for work. I couldn't miss this opportunity. There's a hidden emergency key in Evelyn's backyard. From that spot known to all family members, I retrieved the key. My hand trembled slightly. For Ethan. Telling myself this, I quietly opened the door. The interior is orderly. Typical of my mother-in-law's meticulous nature. But today, I came with a different purpose. There must be some clue. I started searching from the living room. Documents, drawers, bookshelves. But nothing particularly suspicious. The kitchen was the same. There must be somewhere else. Just then, my eyes fell on the door to the basement. That door, usually locked, was slightly ajar. I descended the stairs. Pointing my flashlight into the dark basement, there was. This is. New children's clothes, neatly arranged by size. All in Ethan's size. Further in, a newly furnished children's room. Complete with bed, toys, and bookshelf. As if waiting for someone. Then, my attention was drawn to a desk drawer. Opening it revealed a bundle of legal documents about custody rights. And underneath, what emerged was, my husband's signed consent form. Dated 1 week ago. Robert, even he. Suddenly, there was a noise upstairs. Someone had returned. I quickly photographed the documents and returned them to their place. Footsteps approaching. I hid behind storage boxes. Is someone there? Evelyn's voice. She came down to the basement and observed for a while, but eventually returned upstairs. Before I could sigh in relief, my phone vibrated. It was the police. Mrs. Mitchell, we have a report about the boat investigation. At the police station, Detective Murphy was waiting. The analysis of the collision marks clearly shows this was intentional. The accident theory is becoming less likely. Then, I was shown surveillance camera footage. On the day of the accident, a white van was parked behind Frank's boat rental shop. The time was just before the accident. We're investigating the owner of that van. Leaving the police, I headed to an old tavern in town seeking the next clue. I'd heard that elderly people who knew the town's history gathered there. Oh, Dr. Mitchell. From behind the counter, Tom Wilson, a former police officer, called out to me. I want to know about the accident 20 years ago, with Evelyn's son. The old man let out a long sigh. Back then too, there were too many unnatural points. But due to insufficient evidence. Just then, the shop door opened. David, Frank's former employee, rushed in. Mrs. Mitchell. I need to talk. I can't keep quiet anymore. His testimony confirmed all suspicions. That day, Mr. Cooper gave special instructions about the new boat's brake system. His story turned my intuition into certainty. And decisive information was provided by the town elder. You see, when Mrs. Evelyn's son had his accident, the circumstances were similar. Boat malfunction, sudden accident, and... The old man hesitated. And... The child's body was never found. At that moment, all the pieces connected. I rushed to my car. I knew where to go. The villa behind Frank's boat rental shop. A place my husband often talked about from his childhood. A building standing in a secluded location away from the lake. On the way, I called the police. Detective Murphy promised, we'll head there right away. As I approached the villa, my heartbeat intensified. When the building came into view through the trees, my car headlights caught a figure. Evelyn. And Ethan. I definitely saw my son. Being led by Evelyn's hand, about to enter the building. I stopped the car and jumped out. Wait. Evelyn turned around. Her face no longer showed the loving expression of a mother-in-law. Stay back, Sarah. Her voice held an almost insane coldness. Mommy. Ethan's voice. My son was safe. However, there was one more person in this scene. Robert. My husband quietly emerged from the building. You don't understand anything. Mother did this for Ethan's sake. The sound of sirens could be heard in the distance. The moment of confrontation with the truth was about to begin. We faced each other in front of the villa. In the darkness of night, only the light leaking from the building's windows illuminated this surreal scene. Ethan. Can you hear my voice? Mommy. I'm here. My son's voice came back. I felt momentary relief at his apparent safety. However, Evelyn was firmly gripping his shoulder. I can't trust you with him. Evelyn's voice echoed coldly. You'll get sick again. Just like that time. No, I replied firmly. I am his mother. I won't run away anymore. The sound of sirens was getting closer. However, there was no sign of panic in Evelyn's expression. Rather, she continued speaking as if unleashing long-held feelings. James too, that day, drowned right before my eyes. A maniacal light dwelled in her eyes. I couldn't let you go through the same pain. I will protect Ethan. Mother is right, my husband cut in from the side. No one tried to understand Mother's pain. But I thought if we followed Mother's wishes, everyone could be happy. I understand her feelings better than anyone. Frank appeared as well. That day, I was partly responsible too. But we went too far. No more. Police car headlights began illuminating the villa's garden. Ethan, come here, I called out quietly but with a firm voice. It's all right. No one will separate us anymore. A moment of silence. Then, Ethan broke free from Evelyn's grip and ran to me. Mommy. I embraced my son. Warm. Real. No. Evelyn screamed. My son. Evelyn collapsed to her knees, breaking down in tears. Frank silently extended his hand, while Robert stood frozen in shock. It was all over. Still holding Ethan, I looked up at the sky. Small stars twinkled in the night sky. The long nightmare was finally coming to an end. A year has passed since then. The legal proceedings after the incident progressed more smoothly than expected. Evelyn received a detailed diagnosis from a psychiatrist and began treatment at a specialized facility. The doctor explained that the trauma from her son's death 20 years ago had driven her to this point. Frank was charged as an accomplice. However, considering his cooperation in solving the case, he avoided a prison sentence. The boat rental shop was closed, and he left town. The most difficult part was repairing my relationship with Robert. I knew about Mother's condition since I was a child, he quietly confessed one night. But I lacked the courage to face it. That weakness put Ethan in danger. Through repeated counseling, we gradually rebuilt our relationship. It was also a process of building new trust. Daddy, watch me. On weekends, Ethan practices riding his new bicycle in the park. Robert supports him from behind while I call out encouragement from the front. We learned firsthand how precious such ordinary moments are. Our relationship with the townspeople also gradually changed. I'm truly sorry about back then, Susan came to apologize with tears. For staying silent even though I knew about Mrs. Evelyn. Many people probably carried similar feelings. But now, we're invited to weekend barbecues and share dishes at church events. The warm interactions have returned. With Evelyn, we allow supervised visits once a month. Please let me watch over Ethan's growth. I felt there was no need to completely reject her wish. We're exploring a new relationship while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Mommy, is Grandma okay now? Occasionally, Ethan asks such questions. She's getting better slowly, I answer. All we can do is watch over her. Lake Minnetonka's surface still shines peacefully today. I still hesitate to ride boats like before. But it's pleasant to walk along the lakeshore and watch the ripples from stones Ethan throws. The fear from that day left deep scars on our family, I wrote in my diary this morning. But through those scars, perhaps we learned about true love and trust. Now, every time I see Ethan smile, I make a vow that no matter what happens, I will continue to protect this child. And that I will make the bonds of this family stronger and deeper. A new morning is about to begin.